Well, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another reading show with me, Richard Vobes, on Listen with Vobes. Listen. We are reading On Southern English Roads by James John Hissey. And I think we're on chapter, I can't remember what chapter we're on, somewhere I did just write it down a minute or two ago. But we are fast approaching the end of that chapter and heading up to... Or did we just start another chapter? I think we just started. I can't remember anyway. Oh, yeah, chapter 10. That's what we're doing. So that was it. We always seem to be missing the beginnings or the ends of chapters at the moment, but not to worry. Hope you're all doing well out there. It's a bit miserable outside. So I'm hoping that you're all good. Let's say hello to a few people, just to give people a chance who are latecomers to arrive. Hello to Sean, who's in his hut having a cup of tea, boiling up the kettle, the Green Man. A lovely Julia, of course. Peter Coombs, Billabong O'Neill, Turbo Stream, Audrey Forbes, Justine Jones, Laura Noel, Alan Sandell, John F., nice to see you, Ben Reeve, Philip Hammond and Mary, lovely to see you, Linda Kane, who says she's glad she's in and not out. Absolutely, it's been a bit of a wet one today. Michael White, Dave of Yore, Lee Lawson, and many more, I'm sure, coming along. Very nice to see you. Thank you very much for coming on this wet and dreary day. And to all of those who are having some difficulties today, we wish you well. Right, let's crack on with the book, shall we? Mike Stevens has just arrived, so it's nice to see you as well. And I'm sure there'll be other people as well, but it's just on the hour. Andrew Norris, what ho, hello to you. Nice to see you, Andrew. So the last thing that we did is that I think we were in Horsham, weren't we? And we were just heading off to somewhere else. I'm just trying to remember. He's in the home county now, which is, or in the homestead of the Vobes, that sort of area. So I don't know where he's going because I've obviously not pre-read any of this, but we're hoping that he goes into places that we're familiar with, which actually he's already done that with some of you, but more familiar, I suppose, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm going to catch up from where we left from Horsham. We decided that we would drive first to Stenning and then along under the north side of the South Downs to Storrington, sleeping at the latter remote and railless spot, provided there were a suitable inn there, which information we trusted to be obtained from the landlord or the ostler at Stenning. It's interesting to note there is no railway at Stenning. There was a railway at Stenning, but that went with the Beecham's Cuts. And actually, for those people who know the area, the bypass, part of the bypass just north of Bramber as you go round Stenning is where the station was and the railway line. You're actually driving on where the railway line goes along. So, so that's quite interesting. Anyway, let's carry on with the story and see what occurs. On leaving Horsham, we passed to our left a large undulating park with many great branching oaks, and shortly we came in sight of the fine old stone-built mansion belonging to it. This is approached from the highway by a long straight avenue of limes. The name of this charming domain was marked on our map as Den Park. We had to consult our map, as there was no one else to inquire. Again and again we've noticed how lonely and deserted are many of the country roads. Especially we have been reminded of this fact when in doubt about our way, with not a soul in sight to enlighten us. Now, I know Den Park. Some people call it Dean. I think it's called Den. And the avenue of trees is still there. It's just on the A. Well, it's just. I don't think that's part of the A24 at that point, but it joins up with the A24. Can't remember. It is part of the Horsham Worthing Road, and as you come onto the avenue that leads up to the Den House, the big mansion that's now flats, very exclusive flats, there's a lodge, there's a little lodge, and there was a young lad when I was at primary school. There was a chap there called Thomas Descencois, a French name, I assume, Thomas Descencois. And I used to go and play with him in the garden at the lodge to Den House. It's interesting, at Den Park. We were now in a stone country, as evidenced by a stone quarry in a field, and by the many old farmsteads and barns around, built of that substantial and lasting material instead of half timber or brick that we had with us so recently. Passing by a lonely inn called The Cock, with its sign fixed to the branch of a tree in a picturesque primitive fashion, we presently found ourselves on high ground with glorious views over all around. Looking northward, our eyes ranged over the vast extent of the Sussex Weald, and to the south they ranged over almost an extensive tract of woodlands that rose and fell in vast undulations of greenery, stretching away right to the foot of the distant downs. He mentioned earlier that it was, quite remote and empty. Little did he know that in 100 years it's incredibly busy along that spot. Close by the spot where we pulled up in order to leisurely enjoy the prospect stood a large white windmill facing all the four winds of the heaven. It had its name Cripplegate Mill boldly painted on it. If you desire a view, and there be a windmill in sight, make for it. Windmills must needs be so situated that there should be an uninterrupted airspace all around, and where there is nothing to impede the air, it follows that there is nothing to impede the vision. We're going to get a picture of this, I think, this windmill coming up in a minute. Our road now dipped sharply down through the thick woods, with the blue-looking downs before us on the high horizon. At the foot of this descent, we came to another of those picturesque ponds. In this case, it might fairly be called a miniature lake that abound in certain parts of Sussex and serve so pleasantly to enliven the landscape with their silvery gleaming and sunny sparkling. A quarter of a mile farther on, standing on a grassy knoll by the roadside, we espied the ruined keep of Knepp Castle. I've been to Knepp Castle and made a video there, actually. The walls of this are very massive, but manifestly the ruin is a mere fragment of the original building. The only use that the crumbling keep now serves being, besides picturesque, which, however, is a thing not to be despised of in an ugly age, appears to be to uphold a weathercock that takes the place of the warlike banner of old, which doubtless often floated proudly and defiantly on the breeze here during the first few centuries after the conquest. Actually, that's a very interesting thing. We'll just have a quick look at Knepp Castle, because I seem to remember there being a weathercock, but I don't know that it's still there. It's funny how that's conjured up an image in my head. And I'm not sure that it's there now. But let's have a look. Because it is. Must be just my imagination. Here we are. Let's just show you what we mean here. If you've never been to Knepp Castle, that's a nice one. I don't know if it's a big one, but we'll soon see. Oh, it's a video. It's not my video. Swine. Let's have a look at that one then. Oh, that would be a titchy one. But anyway, this is basically the ruin, such as it is. What about that one? That's another video. Why are you showing me videos? There we are, look. Sometimes just to get to the picture, it's a pain, isn't it? Nigel Sadler, don't forget about it. Oh, right, I've been baked. Right, okay, people, just that's fine. Yeah, so there it is. I mean, that's the grassy knoll up there, and this is all that's left. And it was really a hunting lodge, not so much of a castle as such, but a hunting lodge. I think for William de Braose, it was either him or the other one. There's two of them, isn't there? Anyway, let's get back to the Vogue show. There it is. The walls of this, yes, it's the only use that this crumbling keep now serves, apart from being picturesque, which, however, is a thing not to be despised in an age, appears to be to uphold a weathercock, which is still on there. I thought that had gone. The situation of the ruins is delightful. If one could only imagine that those stern Norman and feudal builders cared in the least for scenery, as one can credit the monks doing it, it might almost be fancied that the original founder of Knepp Castle was attracted to the spot on account of its lovely natural surroundings. But above all, the Norman mind was essentially military. Even his abbeys and churches he built strongly rather than beautifully. We've got another windmill here. This one, it says the South Downs near Stenning. I'll just give you a quick preview of that whilst we've got it on the page. That is the one. Very artistically done, that one, because if you notice, it's got curves coming down from the top in a very cartoon-like fashion, which is a bit weird. And it's supposed to be near Stenning. So just looking at those hills behind and trying to work out what that view would be. And you've got the hay or wheat stooks, I think they're called, all done. Picturesque. Ding! Thank you very much, Audrey, for ringing that bell. Very good. At West Grinstead, a small village next on our road, we noticed the charming old rectory with its fine stone slab roof, all weather tinted, moss grown and lichen stained into almost every imaginable hue, and contrasting greatly with the much restored church immediately adjoining. Excuse me. It seems to me, in the eternal fitness of things, that the church should look older than the rectory. A little way out of West Grinstead stands a stone cross, close to the roadside, erected to the memory of a gentleman who lost his life there in 1883. But how he lost it the inscription saith not. Is that stone cross, I suppose, is long gone? Anybody know about that? I can't think where that would be. The ditch is wide and high banked at the sides, and we hazard a guess that possibly the fatal accident occurred to a horseman whilst rashly attempting to jump it. Wayside crosses are very rare in the England of today, but we have come upon one occasionally during our many driving expeditions. On to Stenning, the country still maintained its pleasantly wooded character. Now and then, the wide, grassy margins to the roadside opened out into long, uneven commons, with geese and ponds and old cottages thereon, all gathered around them. Close to a little hamlet called Partridge Green, we crossed the railway on a raised bridge. It's funny, Partridge Green, the lovely Julia and I did a walk from Partridge Green on that railway, which is no longer there, just for a short stell to Halland, I think it's called. Is it Halland? Up there. And so we would probably have I think we got on just close to where that bridge is he's talking about. Anyway, it's just a sort of by the way. Linda Kane says, Stone Cross in memory of W.H.W.R. Burrell, Needs Hill. Is it still there? Beautiful crossroads at Picturesque McDonald's. The Normans created many beautiful buildings, says Michael White. Yes, well, that's the thing. It's all in the eye of the beholder, isn't it? A lot of the time. Stone Maltese cross erected in memory of WHWR Burrell, second son of Sir Walter Burrell, Baronet of Knepp Castle, who was killed in an accident on this spot, 19th of July, aged 26. Is it still there, Linda? Is the stone cross... It's all very well giving me the info, but is the cross still there? I'll have to do a search myself now. By the way, let me know if there is any buffering as well. I did a bit more research on the buffering. I don't know if it's buffering. Let's have a look. Oh, it doesn't say it's buffering, so I may have got the keystream thing doing. I think West Grinstead is in West Sussex too. Yes, it is in West Sussex. Absolutely. So what's his name? WHWR Burrell Stone Cross. Oh, it is still there. Well, there is a stone cross, a roadside memorial. Is this the one? Not buffering. Thank God for that. Right, hang on. Where do we go? There. Is that the one there? Oh yeah, that must be it. Not as big as I was imagining. Where is it then? Sorry, just having a bit of a nose here. Oh, why didn't that enlarge? So typical. So there's the old railway then. That's the railway? Sandpit, hang on. West Grinstead. Oh yes. Oh, how funny. Littleworth. I said Halland. Littleworth is what I meant. Yeah, Julia and I did a walk and we came up here. We went past it and then we jumped up over there. We had a lot of issues with the field and what have you. And then we came down here and we'd parked down here by the Green Man pub. That's right. It was Littleworth, not Halland. That's somewhere else. Hope Richard doesn't knock over his water. Oh, yes, sorry about that. Yeah, how interesting. Right, where are we? Get back to the thing. How lovely, yeah, the stone cross. So that's it there. Does that give us a better look at it? Big ditch. Good. Oh, that's fascinating. That's something to go back and have a look at some juncture. I try not to knock my water over because there's a lot of electronics on the table here. Anyway, that's fascinating. On to Stenning. The country still maintained its pleasant wooded character. Now and again, the wide grassy margins of the roadside opened out into long, uneven commons with geese, so we read that, and ponds and old cottages. At Partridge Green, oh, here we go, from the top, oh yeah, this is where he's just said it in the foreground. Oh no. Sorry, it sounds familiar. From the top of this bridge, it is delightful and comprehensive view of the South Downs range with the lowland woods creeping up its sheltered hollows. In the foreground of this picture stands an old black and white half-timbered farmhouse, just where an artist would have placed it for effect. Soon after this, we reached Stenning, where we pulled up at the White Horse, an old-fashioned coaching house. In the stable yard, the White Horse is, if it's the right same pub as I think it is, it's just up off the high street, up a little lane, and it's right on the corner of. My mum used to live down the little lane. I can't even remember what it was called. 33. She lived at 33. Can't remember. She lived down there anyway. It doesn't matter. In the stable yard, we found a gentleman who had driven from Storrington, and he informed us that there was a very fair hotel there with good stabling. Moreover, he further informed us that when he left in the morning, not a soul was staying at it. Being assured of obtaining quarters for the night, we decided to rest the afternoon at Stenning and drive on to Storrington in the cool of the evening, and to drive through a fresh and pretty country on a fine summer evening. How pleasant a thing that is. I found the cross on Street View on the BBB opposite the turning for Littleworth. Ah, yes, there we are. We must have been very close to it but didn't observe it. Having the afternoon before us, we started forth for a stroll around Stenning. We discovered many both interesting and picturesque old houses scattered about the town. There is a quaint bell tower crowning the fire station that, rising well above a long line of roofs, gives quite a character to the little old-fashioned looking main street. However quaint and interesting in detail many of our country towns are, they frequently suffer in comparison with continental ones, in that they have no one special architectural feature beyond the church to form a focus for the eye. The church at Stenning hides itself away, so much so that during our short preambulations about the town we had failed to discover it, and were fain to ask our way thereto. Then, as good fortune would have it, we met the worthy vicar, who, in response to our question as to where we might get the keys, most good-naturedly offered to show us over the church himself, but furthermore, to make our obligation the greater, very kindly invited us into the vicarage in order that we might see some of the curiously carved and ancient oak panelling there. This was quite an unexpected treat to us, and all the more delightful because so unexpected. Our curiosity was aroused. The panelling proved to be most interesting and deserving of detailed inspection, and we did not like to dally too long viewing it, nor did we venture to attempt any drawing thereof, knowing how fully occupied is the time of a clergyman in the country, and there is still the church to see. And had we at once started sketching, there is no saying when we would have stopped. The panelling is covered with many heraldic devices, shields, coats of arms, besides bands of scroll-work and other decorative detail. It is an important piece of work, and the carving is very fine, but what its exact history is, or how it found its way into the vicarage, even the vicar couldn't say. Amongst the various devices that our host courteously pointed out to us, and explained, more or less fully, their possible meanings, were the following, which I noted down as they were told to me, and in the chance order that was given. The Bruce Lion of Scotland, the pomegranate of Queen Catherine of Aragon, the Tudor badge of the Rose and Crown, the portcullis with crown above, the badge of Henry VIII, the royal arms of England and France combined, a very fine panel of the arms of the See of London. Besides sundry dolphins, fleur-de-lis, spread eagles, clusters of grapes, introduced into the various panels, this beautiful and suggestive specimen of old-time carving should delight the heart of an antiquity and give him something to ponder and puzzle over, possibly also to dispute learnedly about with a friend of similar tastes. Running along the top of the panelling are a number of scrolls, some having inscriptions and others left blank, as though intended to be filled at some subsequent time. The centre scroll is inscribed Da Gorium Deo qui Fecit Hec Omnia, Anno Domini Miles Cuvincetes Vicimo Secudo. It says, Richard Vobes reads Latin very poorly, is what it translates to. The carving on the panel is left half completed. Then we were conducted to the church, the vicar kindly pointing out the chief points of interest therein, and they were great. First our attention was called to the fine chancel arch, built, we learnt, in 1096. The pier arches on either side of the nave are enriched with unusually fine carved Norman work, indeed the finest of the kind and period we've ever seen. The patterns of each of these differ entirely from the others, and moreover show quite original ideas, though essentially Norman in mass and feeling. These arches were manifestly originally constructed of plain masonry and decorated after erection. In proof of this, one remains unfinished, a portion of the arch being carved, the other portion being of plain square hewn stones, just as first set in place by the ancient mason. Here one may see the very chisel marks, sharp and clear too, of the old-time carver, exactly as they were left long, eventful centuries ago. Tradition has it, we were told, that there were 7 monks here, and an arch was given to each monk to decorate, and it is supposed one of the monks died before he completed his arch, and so it has remained to this day. A little bit of history told in stone, only it had to be translated to us. The north and south transepts, the vicar said, were probably destroyed during the Wars of the Roses. Then we were taken up some wooden stairs of deal, I verily believe, into the galley. Not Norman stairs, these? Oh, sorry, that's not the voice of the vicar that I was suddenly trying to imitate. Not Norman stairs, these, we jokingly remarked. The vicar agreed with us. Here in the gallery we were close to the capitals of the piers, and our courteous conductor pointed out on one of them something strange, and to me, at any rate, inexplicable, something that might well perplex the most learned archaeologist, and to make him despair of a reasonable explanation, and gave us food to ponder unprofitably over for many days after. On one of the capitals to a side arch is carved carefully and well the bull and eagle of ancient Babylon, in the true spirit of Babylonian sculpture. Not a feelingless reproduction of the same, yet the capital is Norman in shape, and the Eastern device has been skilfully adapted to it. The bull and eagle of Babylon, as may be known, are curiously combined in one, so that looking on the carving we saw as either the two mingled forms for the moment asserted its predominance, first the bull and then the eagle, according to the conventional shape of that animal and bird, which has made familiar by ancient sculpture. But how came this copy of a heathen sculpture, so faithfully rendered, into a Christian church, and that in early Norman times? How came the Norman carver to know anything about it, or granting the knowing, to use it there? We learnt that the late Sir Gilbert Scott had made a special inspection of the carving upon one occasion when he was visiting the church, but could not solve the mystery. Perhaps no one will ever be able to. The church tower is of the familiar Sussex type, added in the 16th century and constructed of checkered flint and stone. The original building appears to have had, or at least have been designed for, a central tower. The last piers of the nave are partially built into the wall, apparently showing that the nave had formerly extended farther eastward. Or else we might conclude that the work was never finished and was abruptly walled up thus. The rector informed us that he believed the original chancel did extend much farther than it does now, indeed as far as the present wall to the vicarage garden, as, when digging graves in the churchyard to the east of the present chancel, huge stones had been discovered, quite white when brought to light, and these stones he considered were undoubtedly the foundations of a larger structure that had disappeared. The church seems to show that Stenning must have been a place of considerable importance in the early Norman times. Well, that would be true, because it was a port as well, which is not mentioned there, that the Ada was much closer to it than it was as it is now, and indeed in the times that he was there. It's moved over a lot. Linda Kane says the church is stunning, amazing Norman carved arches. I would love to see the church. Has Richard done a video? I've only done a video on the outside and not terribly much about the church. We should go back. I think we will try and have a look now at the Stenning church and see if we can see those arches. Stenning church images. Let's have a look. So here is the let's have a look. St Andrew's Church. This is the church here. Hang on, let me just share the image. There's the tower. There's the checkerboard. Will that show it? Not really. Just about see the checkerboard of the flint and stone. Let's just go back again here. Is that a big picture? No. Thanks, very helpful. Oh, wait a minute. So, view. We can just about make out some of the... are they chevrons around there and what have you? But I can't see the carvings that they were talking about. Let's... is that a bit better? So about the delay. Yeah, titchy. Carvings on the capitals there and on the arches, but... Oh, I see. We can do this. There we go. Bit of... It's interesting. What's that? I don't know. Where are we looking at? Oh, that's behind the altar. Yeah, but so titchy, though. Stenning Church Ping. That must be an older version of it. Look at that, the cattle in the graveyard. Why would you not have cattle in the graveyard? Stenning Church, it says. Marvellous. Yeah, still in excellent condition. None of that yellow what's-the-name, so that's all good. Lee Lawson says you have to bend double to go through the door to the lower tower, but when you get up in the spiral staircase, the ringing room is really big. Isn't there a Saxon stone or something in the porch, if I remember rightly? Isn't there Saxon stone somewhere there? My mum used to, as I said, my mum used to live in Stenning, and we'd often go down and, you know, sort of took it for granted. It was only when I started to do my filming that I started to appreciate Stenning a lot more for its older buildings. I think because my mum lived there, and she was an alcoholic, and not so many happy memories with that, really. Dudley Sawyer has just arrived. Hello, Dudley. Nice to see you. It looked like the castle were outside the graveside wall. Yes. Let's have a look. Where are we? Returning to our inn, still in the company with the vicar, we noticed as we walked along a small cottage let into the wall, of which was a stone panel bearing this legend: "This is Sir Harry Gough's house, 1771. Presumably, as we walk to our... Oh, that's coming up from the church. I wonder which one that is. We asked the vicar whether the inscription had any meaning or story to tell, as it struck us that it might have. "Do you know," he exclaimed, "I have often wondered what it was put up there for, but though I've lived here so long, I cannot say." I'm imagining the vicar is a bit like Derek Nimmo in an Oh Brother. Do you remember him? I cannot say. Just then, a parishioner chanced to come along. They always chance to come along in these books, don't they? Chanced to come along, and the vicar, taking him by the arm in a friendly way, said, "Penfold." Penfold, is this Danger Mouse? Sorry, have we gone into the wrong programme here? "Now, can you tell us the meaning of that inscription?" Penfold was equal to the occasion. "I think I can," he said. "You see, there were a tenant once there who would not pay any rent and claimed the cottage as his own. And Sir Harry Goff, I've heard say, had a lot of trouble to get him out and again take possession. So after that, Sir Harry had a notice put up there to show whose cottage it was." That sounds a good reason. Between Stenning and Brember? Who's Brember? Between Stenning and Bramber, we learnt there were some fields known by the curious title of heathen burials, but any further history of them we were unable to discover. The title is, however, suggestive. Yeah, always include something that you can't then go and further tell us about in the book. Why not? That makes us all feel, what? Early in the evening we set forth for Storrington, just as the sun was tinging in the western sky with the golden glory. The balmy air, too, was fragrant with sweet country odours, a bit like today, that seemed so pleasantly to assert themselves towards the close of a long, warm summer's day. Our road lay along the foot of the downs and took us through spreading woods, varied here and there by sweeps of pastoral lands, dotted with peaceful homesteads, from grey old mansion to weather-stained cottage. The whole drive of 6 miles or so was a dream of beauty. The scenery must be enchanting at any time, but its charms were undoubtedly enhanced by the tender warm lights and mysterious shadows of the quiet eventide. Soon after leaving Stenning, we passed Whiston Park, a most delightful domain with its placid lake mirroring the glowing sky above and its wealth of leafy woods showing a translucent yellow-green, effectively contrasting with the dark purple-grey that the downs had assumed. It's interesting that he should say that because you can't see Whiston Park from the road now, or indeed even the pond, and what makes you wonder if the road is in the same place. Presumably it is. And that's interesting. And just as a footnote to that, I will be lighting my Hissey shortly, my wood-burning stove, which I have the ash trees that have been dying from ash dieback from the Whiston estate. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Well, put it in your Hissey and smoke it, of course. Such a fool that I am. Then, up and down with gradual rises and falls and many gentle windings, our road led us from one revelation of loveliness to another. Each bend of the way had something fresh to show us. Yeah, probably the big sandpit. During most of the drive, Chanctonbury Hill was in sight, crowned by a ring of trees, but bare to its wooded summit, thus reversing the general order of things when the base of a hill is generally wooded and its summit bare. What? But bare to its wooded summit. When was he going? He was going in the spring, wasn't he? Why was that the beech trees should have been in full blossom? He didn't go in 1986. Sure he didn't. I'm sure this is in 1896, not 1986. When we had the hurricane and Chanctonbury was in a sorry old state. Picturesque cottages now and then delighted our vision, really and naturally picturesque ding-ding cottages that might have come out of some watercolouring drawing. Again, they are there, some of these lovely old cottages, but you whiz past on that road. What road is it? It's the two... What is that road? The Stenning to Storrington to Washington Road. Linda Kane. Here we go. The plaque. Here we go. The plaque on the cottage. Remember we were just talking about that? Says that Sir Henry Gough, 1771. It seems he was a member of Parliament for nearby Bramber, and back in the day he owned the whole of Bramber village. Phew, cheeky man. And Lee Lawson mentions there is a good ugly gargoyle on the south side of the church, a mouth puller, if I remember rightly. That's at Stenning Church. Well worth going there to have a look. The A283, Nigel Sadler, thank you very much. I knew it was something like the 28. I was going to say the 281, but that's the isn't the 281 to Guildford? You know, one so familiar with these bloody numbers of the road. Most busy road, the 283, death trap for cyclists. Yes, I wouldn't want to cycle on that way because of the twists and turns and the up and downs and the tight hedges. There is, I thought, you know, years ago when they used to have the main roads, and it's a sort of fairly main road, didn't they? They had like 20 feet either side that had to be open. But back in the day, you know, so that I think I forget which king it was, it was one of the Edward the First. Was it Edward the First? Really long time ago. And the whole point of that is so that you could see the thieves, or they had no hiding place if you were on the King's Road. They had to have these wide 20-foot, whatever it was, either side of the main road, making a span of something like 80 foot in total. I think it was Edward the First. Edward the First. You know, all these little titbits of informazione that plonks into your head from time to time. Here we go. Yes, the whole countryside had an indescribable look of contentment and long human abiding that was most rest suggesting. You wouldn't want to rest on that road now. They sometimes have the lay-by, for those that don't know, with cherries for sale in there. And I think Julia and I went past the other day, and what was the thing they were selling? They were trying to flog something that I don't know what it was. It was something after the cherry season. It was something most peculiar. I shan't cycle down there. I know, don't cycle in that area, for God's sake. It's a nice walk from the church. What is that church? You know the one. Linda and Lee will know the one I mean, and Nigel. Bang opposite the entrance to Chantonbury Ring. Oh, I've filmed there so many times. What is it called? It'll come to me. Lovely little church. You go through a little sort of bluebell wood to get to it. It's a footpath. You can't drive to it at all. You can park up there. Oh, what's it? Bunkton Church. There we go. Got there in the end. I'm sure you've typed it, but I read it before before it's shown its thing. Anyway, it seemed to us that day a veritable Arcadia. It may be that much of the poetry of the scenery lay within ourselves, I think it was, and was due to our transient frame of mind, but so impressed us, but so it impressed us, and as it impressed us, so I write of it. Bunkton, Linda Kane, there we are, just popped up. There's a bit of a delay, but you're quite right. Then after a time, when near to our destination, suddenly the woods ceased and gave way to an open, heathery, hilly waste. Is that Warren Woods he's talking about? Has he crossed the A24, where the roundabout would be? But I'm interested to see where he crosses, and I don't suppose he's going to say, because the roundabout clearly wasn't there until the 1960s or something, whenever they put the bypass in and up there. And we looked on old maps, Julia and I, when we did a video about geocaching. And we looked on old maps, and all that whole area, there was some sort of waterworks or something. There was some works or wood shop or something where the roundabout is. I can't remember. And clearly all of that had been knocked down and the road ploughed through. So I don't know whether he went through Washington or just bypassed Washington. I'm just quite curious to see if he mentions it. I don't think he does. Then after a time to our destination, it was a hilly waste. That too had its charms. On a prominent knoll thereon stood a solitary, a solitary and primitive windmill. Oh, he's talking about the windmill which burnt down. And if you walk through Warren Woods, all that's left is the wind shaft. I think it's a metal wind shaft. And it's on a rest. So that would be what? Storrington Mill, I think. I can't remember what they call it, what the name of it is. So that's interesting. You could see that from the road, which you can't. It's all covered in woods now, trees and stuff. On a prominent knoll thereby stood a solitary and primitive windmill, its four sails slowly revolving and just catching the ruddy glow of the last rays of the setting sun, whilst all around was merged in one mass of cool grey shade. By the way, I've made a video of going up to that windmill, just sort of point that out in case you want to have a look at it. It was a study for a painter, yet possibly did one try to portray it. It was a study for a painter, yet possibly did one try to portray it. Such an effect would be called for by clever art critics, forced and unnatural, or an attempt to imitate Turner. If artists must paint for profit, they must paint what the multitude can understand, something they see every day, and can exclaim when they see a representation of it, "Oh, how natural!" Artists who are able and content to paint for future fame may perhaps venture to paint poems, but who can tell what the art standard of the 20th century may be? Well, don't worry, the 20th century, it all gets very bad. We start having things like toilets with people's signatures written on it, and it all goes downhill. So you stick to your paintings back then in the end of the Victorian period. Leaving a bit of wild heath, a wonderful splash of deep dark purple in the landscape, which, by the way, is still up there if you go onto some of that heathy hill, we drop down into the out-of-world village, or tiny town, of Storrington, where, at the White Horse, we found a ready welcome and a smiling landlady, who did all in her power to render us comfortable, and that with much success. And I'm thrilled to hear that, because he was at the wasn't he at the White Horse in Storrington, and then at the White Horse in Stenning, and then at the White Horse in Storrington. Is that I went into Warren Woods, says Linda Kane. How I got up there in my Mini, I have no idea. The pothole in the mud in the Mini, the Rock Common windmill is still standing, but no sweeps. Oh yes, that's not the one I think he means. There was a windmill on Rock Common. Yes, it's a private house now, but I don't think that's the one he means. I think he means the one at Warren Wood, because that is, well, I mean, it could be either. I'm not saying it isn't. I forget when that one blew up. It burnt down. It blew up and burnt down the other one. Michael White says landscape paintings are no longer in fashion. Well, they're not, unless, of course, they are by watercolourists. And you get a lot of these watercolourists who are learning their craft and just do, very. I think watercolour is very clever, but you get so many where they just create the illusion of trees and water and a few hills, and they seem to be able to churn them out without even having any real landscape to copy. It's just like, very what's the word that they describe that as? There's a word for it. Yeah, the rock one, I tried to get up to the rock one. You can't really get up to it. I did a walk very close to it a year or so ago, and had no joy really. It's a private boring house. But I think he's talking about the one on Warren Warren Woods there personally, and I've been up there, and you would have seen it from the road coming in, and it would have been above you, and all that heather and stuff is still there, and it's quite a wide place. And I reckon, looking at the trees and remembering those trees, they were quite young. They were a good 100 years old, so that was probably a lot more open back then. But that's just my opinion. What do I know? But there could have been plenty of windmills around that he would have spotted, of course. The projecting signboard of our inn, we noticed, had on one side of it the representation of a white horse, shown as standing quietly and ready saddled at his stable door, waiting for his rider. On the other side, the horse was represented as galloping wildly away, riderless. A little poetic conception we imagined of a village sign painter, and a little poetical conception we imagined of the village sign painter, and welcomed as the spirit change even... Sorry, I'm coming to the end of the reading, and now I'm just falling a bit. A little poetical conception we imagined of the village sign painter, and welcome as a spirit change from the even tenor of most modern inn signs. Ah, yes. Contrived, yes. Sort of ethereal. They have a sort of ethereal quality where it could be... bucolic is a good word. Like the plague. Within a mile of Storrington... How are we doing on time-wise? Maybe we should... I'm just looking to have a quick look. Yeah, we've got a few pages to go. I think that's probably a good place to stop, actually, because he's going to go to Parham, and then he's going to get involved in Parham House. So I think we'll stop there, as we are 50 minutes into that. But that's interesting, those places. I'd like, it's funny, when it's your area, you want a little bit more detail, don't you? There's a windmill above the sand quarry near Rock Roundabout. Oh yes, that's I believe the composer John Ireland lived there. That's actually right. When we did a video in Washington, we discovered that John Ireland lived there. That's right, and that's the one that Nigel was just talking about. But I'm not convinced that's what he was talking about. I think he's talking about the one just before you come down the hill into Storrington, because of the way you just described, and then you come down the hill. So, but either way, he probably would have seen both. If I remember rightly, that one is a tower mill, isn't it? The Rock one, I think, is a tower mill, and the other one is a post mill. And the post mill would have been a wooden one, and I think that would have been much more the one he would have noticed and cared about. Nigel says, so much crossover with Walter Wilkinson. Yes, that's very true. 7 mills in Storrington, Sullington throughout the years, says Linda Kane. So, yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, the windmills would have been everywhere. And who was it that we read? It may have been this guy. I think it was this guy who's described them as, although they're in part of industry, they just design them in a way that look right. And obviously they didn't design them for the looks, but they just look very beautiful, windmills, doing what they do. Yeah, so there we go. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for today. That's been interesting. We've got one more session of reading tomorrow. We'll get to the end of that chapter and maybe launch into the next one. It was all good fun, interesting stuff being on the home territory. And Ben Reeves says, talking of two-sided pub signs, by the Fuller's Brewery is a two-sided pub. It's the Mawson Arms on Chiswick Lane South, but it's called the Fox and Hounds on Mawson Lane. Oh, interesting. There you go. Do you know of any other pubs which have got two names, or indeed have two different pictures on their signs? The Cricketers has got two pictures on either side. It's got two different Cricketers. The Cricketers, that is, in Dunkton, I should say. Michael White says, great, Richard. Richard, I'll go back and look at your Stenning video. There you go. Yeah, and the other one is, I can't remember which the one, it's the windmill in Warren Woods, so I can't remember that one. It's at, a little walk round, and then I discovered the wind shaft, this metal wind shaft, which was the only, I think it was the metal one, the only remains. And there's some pictures, I think, or drawings of it on fire. I think they were drawings for when it caught fire. And yeah, it's interesting. Nigel Sadler says, this is so enjoyable, especially with all the diversions into maps and pictures. Real exploring. Absolutely. And it's great. And thank you so much for the contributions. That's what I really, I think this is where it works really well, where we're all contributing and we can debate a mute point in some detail. It's all good fun. Anyway, have a good afternoon. I hope the rain is not causing too much problems with you. Look after yourselves, and I'll be back again tomorrow. No Vogue show this evening. I'm hoping the weather will be a bit better than today for tomorrow, because I didn't go out today, but I probably ought to go out tomorrow. Don't want to get complacent and carry on with the Sussex border walk. Tomorrow's video is about puppets. A box arrived from Mr. Norris. Excuse me. And I've opened the box in an unboxing video. And we talk about the Walter Wilkinson reenactment that Andrew and I are planning for the spring, which will be pretty much 100 years. I mean, it's a few, it might be 90-something years out. We don't know. But there we go. Anyway, look after yourselves, and I will catch up with you soon. Ta-ta for now. Take care. Bye-bye.